Hello and welcome to the Franz Van Cat interview. I'm Annette Young. As the bloody crackdown in Syria continues with the death toll now reaching more than 2,000, European powers are lobbying heavily for UN Security Council sanctions against President Bashar al-Assad. This comes after a chilling briefing to the Security Council by the UN Human Rights Commissioner, Navi Pillay. Council members were told of a shoot-to-kill policy against protesters, stadium executions, not to mention the torture and murder of children. Joining me now live from New York is Navi Pillay herself. Navi Pillay, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us. To begin with, can you outline some of the evidence that you presented to the Security Council?
This is the evidence that was gathered by the Commission to investigate the human rights violations in Syria, mandated by the Human Rights Council. And actually, this report will be considered in full on Monday before the Human Rights Council. But the Security Council asked me to come and brief them on the contents of the report and also the current situation. And as you correctly said, Annette, it makes chilling reading. It comes from testimony gathered from over 180 witnesses from 4 of the neighboring countries, because Syria did not give access to the Commission to enter Syria. But we have attached the report of the Syrian government in which they confirm the deaths of 1,900 people, but they say 350 of them were their own security forces. And amongst the people we interviewed were defectors from the security forces. And this is why we give these first-hand accounts, which we verified. We checked for corroboration, and it's really credible evidence of indiscriminate shooting against unarmed civilians who were demonstrating legitimately for their rights. And there is a pattern which goes across very many cities. The report says it's widespread and systematic. It involves, as you said, the shoot-to-kill policy, snipers shooting indiscriminately from rooftops at civilians, people trying to drive ambulances, people trying to go out to look for food and water, and 26 men unconnected to the demonstrations who were blindfolded and executed in the stadium. And so we say the widespread and systematic violations of human rights consists of extrajudicial killings, widespread massive arrests, detentions, and torture. It includes children as well.
Now, I understand that some of the hospitals who are treating those victims of military assault, among those hospitals, some doctors were refusing to treat the injured because they feared persecution themselves.
The report documents the atrocities in relation to the hospitals. Firstly, just before there was going to be a military attack on an area, they closed the hospital, denying access to the injured. Very often the injured were turned away from the hospitals. The denial of medical treatment is a human rights violation.
Now, the Syrian government has so far refused to cooperate and has refuted the report findings, haven't they?
They have denied the killings. They attribute the killings to extremists and to terrorists, but they did not provide the mission with any evidence in support of that allegation.
And did you approach them, obviously, to gain access to Syria, and what was their response, if any at all?
We sent 4 note verbals and also had personal meetings with the head of the Syrian mission in Geneva. And I was a bit disappointed because this is activity that is mandated by the Human Rights Council, and Syria is part of that intergovernmental process. Now, they didn't actually say, no, you can't come. They just didn't answer. But when we sent them the questionnaire, they did reply and submitted this 27-page account of what they claim happened, and this is attached to the report as well.
Navi Pillay, the mission talks about a list of 50 people or so that they believe are directly responsible for the killings and murder and torture. Will you publish those names?
It's still under consideration because let me say that this report has to formally go before the Human Rights Council, and it's supposed to be heard by them on the agenda for September. However, they are holding a special session on Monday, and I'm waiting for directions and decisions to come from the Human Rights Council. With regard to this list of names, they are composed of people in positions of authority, heads of cities and the military, police, and so on. We will provide this list to an investigating body such as the International Criminal Court.
Now, there is a fact-finding mission which is heading from the UN on humanitarian basis to the country in the next few days. What will they be able to achieve, do you think?
Now, the Humanitarian Affairs looks into the position of internally displaced people and provision of food and water and other urgent humanitarian needs. And they had not been allowed into the country all this time. But yesterday, the Secretary General spoke to President Assad, and he agreed to the humanitarian mission coming in. He fixed the date of August 20th, but in response to the Secretary General's request that my team also be allowed access so that we can monitor the human rights situation and the violations, President Assad declined that.
Now, you've called on the Security Council to refer the violence to the International Criminal Court for an investigation into possible crimes against humanity. What are the chances of that actually happening?
I said that the evidence points to crimes against humanity having been committed, and that is a crime under the Rome Statute. And I asked the Secretary General in the course of their deliberation to consider a referral to the International Criminal Court, because that is the appropriate body that can investigate these very serious crimes. I did not receive any reaction, but they are still deliberating over the matter.
Are you positive? Are you optimistic?
I am not optimistic. I think that very many member states wish to continue to engage diplomatically and apply pressure. Above all, they feel that Syrians should be in charge of coming up with a solution.
Now, Syria, has signed, as you just mentioned, the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, but has yet to ratify the agreement, which means that they are not party to it, and therefore a referral can only happen if it comes from the Security Council. But there is a precedent, isn't there, with Darfur?
There is a precedent with Darfur and Libya.
And as a result, what will happen in the next week or two? Because one of the countries which have been very reluctant to take tougher action against Syria is your own, South Africa. Do you see any chance of countries such as South Africa, Russia, China and India and other BRICS countries actually stepping up to the plate and agreeing for tougher action?
Well, these are political situations that are weighed by different countries. So I have no comment on the kind of actions that they decide upon. I can only, as High Commissioner for Human Rights, raise my voice to ask for accountability and justice for victims.
How would you describe the situation in Syria right now, Navi Pillay?
I would say the situation is dire, and even now, although President Assad has undertaken to withdraw the military, the reports I am getting is that the atrocities are continuing, there continue to be violations, that the military that have moved out of some cities are actually on the outskirts of each city. And that means it's still a a threat and a cause for fear for ordinary Syrians.
So what will happen with this report?
This report will be considered by the Human Rights Council. It was supposed to be September, but the member states moved the date forward to Monday. And on Monday morning, I will be addressing the Human Rights Council and updating them on the current situation. And then it's an intergovernmental decision on what kind of action they would take next.
Are you lobbying very hard on that case?
My mandate as High Commissioner is to bring these factors to emphasize to member states that the situation is dire. Ordinary people are losing their lives. They're being arbitrarily arrested and detained and tortured, children included. And the situation requires urgent action on the part of the international community to come to the aid of victims of these kind of human rights violations. And so I am hopeful that there will be some outcome from the deliberations in the Human Rights Council on Monday.
Navi Pillay, I'm afraid that's all we have time for. Thank you so much for joining us. That's it for this edition of the Frans van Kat interview. Stay tuned for more news and headlines, which are coming up shortly.